So here we are in my studio, and this is where I do my live streaming. I've got my easel here and my painting table, and you can see me doing my live streaming on Facebook and Instagram at noon Mountain Standard Time. I make a painting from start to finish, and I'm talking back and forth with my audience. You can ask me questions, so it's very exciting. It's a fun time together, anywhere between half an hour to an hour. And I make the painting and talk about it. And usually people who are watching inspire me as I'm making it with things that they're talking about and saying, and they give me ideas for the names of the painting kind of comes to me often while I'm live streaming. So I hope you can join me next time on Thursdays at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time.
It's the Shop with Giselle Denis show with Giselle Denis. How are you doing, Giselle?
I'm doing well, James. How are you?
Very good, very good. So
Good.
are going to do visit with you for your portfolio from your small works.
Sounds good. Let's have a look.
Okay, I'm just going to share your screen, and I noticed that you've got some, I guess it's because they're easier to place. You have them in a rock garden, so you can see rocks behind them. So that was...
I'm always kind of coming up with different ideas to photograph the pieces to give them some visual interest in the little pictures that I post, right? So these ones I chose to do that way just to kind of give you a bit of idea for scale. Even though it's hard to tell exactly, but gives them something to look through.
I see.
So which ones did you want to talk about here?
Well, I've got three picked up, but I wanted to talk a little bit about about your small works. Now,
okay.
So for a foot by foot, 2 feet by 6 inches, that kind of size. But how long are these taking? They look as detailed. Like there's certainly not a lot of time advantage for you to paint a small work as opposed to a large work, or is there?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you recognize that because I don't do a lot of small works, but I always try and have some smaller ones available just for like price point. And we all of us have these little spots in our house to put something small. We need some color. And then, price point is a little less scary than spending a couple thousand. These are, $150, $200, $300 pieces, but all originals, of course. But they're as well. They're all, of course, hand painted. They're not prints, all original pieces. So, I can do a large painting. Oh, are you still there?
No, yeah, something went with your mic there.
Oh, you know what happened? My Bluetooth on my speaker picked up. Can you not hear me as well? Because I can switch it off.
Yeah, I can't hear you as well.
Okay, let me just switch that off 1 second. All these little technical... Okay, and we're back. How do I find you? Oh, crap.
And video.
Where did I go? I gotta find you now.
Video on.
I'm reconnecting to you. Here we go. Okay. And so what I've done is try and offer these pieces that are in a friendlier price point, but they do take me, so I was saying a big painting can take me 1.5 to 2 hours. I could probably get a number of these done in that same time frame, but they're fun little exercises for me. Like sometimes if I don't necessarily feel like jumping into a large piece instantly when I step into the studio that day, these are nice warm-up pieces for me. And then as I'm doing the warm-up piece, I've got paintings I can still sell. So, they're kind of fun to it's quite satisfying because if I can get, a number of pieces done in a day, I've got, 5 to 10 new pieces that I can pop up there. I usually work on them kind of in a series. So I haven't done any recently, meaning in the last month. I've been working on a lot of big commission pieces, like 4 by 6 foot pieces. But these, like I said, are real nice sort of studies. They give me ideas for larger paintings also. So if I'm trying to work on something, introduce a different color scheme or a different type of flower, or, I want to do a little bird series, these kind of help me decide, do I want to make these into larger pieces later?
And I'm seeing some different kinds of colors than I've seen in your color. It looks like you're trying different color combinations as well as you're putting this stuff out.
Yeah, exactly. And when I do one, say that purple butterfly there on the right,
yeah.
When I do one like that, I'll do, I'll set them out and I'll do 3 all together. Like I'll work on a series at the same time. So there's 3 wet canvases in front of me.
Okay.
And then it's like, then I can play with where I want the color and all of that. And often people collect them in series of 2 or 3 anyway. So they have sort of sister pieces that can be purchased together or separately, which is a good way to do it.
So small works, happy, cheerful paintings expressing moods and feelings. I paint about things and the way we feel in and around things. The atmosphere of things and places expressed on canvas. So interesting.
And that's kind of expressed mostly through the playfulness of the paint, but also in the titles. And so I find people often connect to all of the pieces, all of my works, because of their names, and it seems to connect with them for whatever they're in the middle of going through or whatever. It touches them in a spot. They're like, oh my gosh, that title, speaks to me as much as the image does. So that's kind of fun for me too. It's almost as exciting for me to paint the painting and then name the painting.
I picked this one because of the different kind of blue, because I was going on and on about your blues last show, and now this is a deeper kind of blue. And that's the reason I picked it, but I have lots to say about it. But what do you have to say about it?
Well, I like the contrast of that deeper blue. I don't always use that, but when you're working on a smaller canvas, sometimes it could get lost, perhaps. When you're working small, you need to have a big statement. When you're working small, it needs to still stand out. It needs to still have contrast and color and good composition. So it's almost, sometimes it can be even more challenging to paint a small one than it can a larger painting. So like I say, these are studies in me playing with color and texture and placement and composition. And they kind of look like, people call these like my angel flowers, where they look like they're floating up. Sometimes that people say like they look like angels or butterflies. They are flowers, but they have a bit of a, is it personification, sort of where they kind of look like humanish, like they have faces and they are trying to say something.
Well, you've in your work that you do when you're commissioned, you do humans as flowers. So it's not that, but I've said that too about your work. It's like almost I'm expecting to see more, even in the blue in the back. I spent a lot of time with this picture, trying to see is there something, is it subconscious that you're doing and is it happening? And what am I seeing? And I wasn't seeing anything. I do see something now, but, and that might just because there's a process. I wish I remember the name of it. It's a psychological process that human beings see humans in random shapes and images. And so I don't want to necessarily just go down there. But the texture, I don't know why, but it has much of a like a food texture to me. I don't know. My mouth waters when I look at this picture. I don't know, maybe the flowers look good enough to eat or something, but I think it's more the texture of it. We talked about how texture in art triggers your other senses. So for whatever reason, that relates to like a salad or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you're not the only one. I've heard that a lot with the texture. It makes you like want to eat it. And
really?
Maybe it's,
okay.
Yeah. And I mean, you can't even really see a lot of the texture in this photograph unless you saw the work in person. Like, I mean, it's nice to have the thumbnail online, but when you see it in person, it doesn't even compare. But if you held the painting on its side, you could see like that thick flowers popping off the canvas, and people like touching it. And I encourage people to touch the paintings. It makes them nervous, but I'm like, no, it's part of your sensory experience enjoying the painting. So touching it is okay. And yeah, it's
triggering and wanting more. It does trigger. So the texture that's
cool. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. And I had another question, but I lost it. Maybe it'll come back to me. And then the colors, this one, the flowers are super bright, but the background is not as bright as is a little bright. It's a little darker, and the colors, like I said, the colors are little. It's a different lineup in the background. The flowers are there, and then the other thing I'm noticing just now is that I guess because it's small, all the other stuff looks like the same size on my screen as I'm looking at it, but this is a foot and a half high by a foot and a little bit wide, as opposed to, we've been looking at some stuff that's more like 6x4 or 8x4, right? So
4 feet, yeah.
I was going to say there's not as many little flowers around this, but how, right? It's you're getting in small, but lots. There's definitely the lots of depth in it again. There's lots of 2D and 3D shapes. It's just fantastic, and the lines, they're horizontal line. The bottom is that coming from a state of rest, right? Mm-hmm. And then the upward lines are reaching up into the terms they use is spirituality, but last time I just called it metaphysics. But it's reaching into the up to higher above ourselves. And you know what I see in the sky in the back is I see someone who's got sideways, has their arm up and is tilting their head back and has their hand on their head. And it's interesting that you would say there's healing in your presence, and I'm sensing that there is another presence in the atmosphere, or in the negative space behind the painting. So it's interesting.
I love that. Yeah,
it's good. It's a good one. That's a good.
I like that.
This one we could talk for a long time.
Yeah.
I apologize. Everyone must be. Is it raining out? Everyone's back on the internet or something. So I have a high-speed fiber, but that doesn't necessarily mean. Okay, here's another one. Creation will always be. Tell us.
Yeah, so this has this white background. So this one's painted opposite of what normally I do. And it's just this look that so if we're talking technical at the moment, generally I work from furthest away to closest. So I work on the sky, and then I do the grass, and then I do the flowers. Like, you work on what's furthest away. But this painting, I actually I apply the flowers and the grasses first, and then I do the background last, and paint it all while the whole thing is wet. So I'm filling in the part that doesn't have flowers and grass. I fill it all in with this white, but it's pulling in a little bit of the color because it's still wet. And I did that on purpose to sort of soften the lines and give it like just fun little shapes. And it's like the opposite of what I normally do. And I just came up with this idea by accident one day. I don't even know how, but that's just what happens when you paint every day. You find new ways to make a painting. And the title, Creation Will Always Be, it's just like that continuity and what's the right word? The sameness of creation gives you such a sense of peace, knowing like, even though everything's changing and swirling around you in life constantly all the time and moving, you have the opportunity to rest in nature, where it's always there, even when everything else might be going away, and life's changing all the time, and nature's always there for you. So it's this nice reminder that, you know what, it's going to be okay. Like, even though things happen and life's not always easy. It's just this nice calming reminder. Like, when I look out and see my forest, it is always changing too, but it's always physically there. It's never going anywhere. So I like that sense of peace what like nature can give us. And when you pay attention to it, it's just a nice way of calming. I need lots of calming in my life. My life can be really crazy. So to live out in the country and see the continuity of forest and nature. My pond is always there. My ground is always here, even though sometimes when I'm out and about, it feels like the ground beneath me is being pulled away, and it's like you feel like you got no foundation. Creation creates that foundation. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. How about you?
Well, it's I've never seen a flower like this. It is Giselle Denis, you know what I mean? But this is an experimental or old or different or of a different line, but I love it. It's very, again, the textures, it looks like it's wet, paint. Like if I put my hands there, I would come up with paint on it. And it's, and I like the idea that this process was different. and that you named it Creation Will Always Be. Because you always, like you said, not always, but you tend to paint from the background to the foreground. This one, you painted the foreground that affected the background, which is a very powerful statement when you say creation will always be, in the sense that we have the creative power to, our foreground affects our background. That's how, and that when explaining your processing, knowing what you're at. But and again, it's different in the sense that the background too, the way that the colors and everything, it seems like you said, it's a painting in reverse of what you normally do. But then you named it Creation Will Always Be. So it's sort of an insight to how you're really creating, because you said before that you paint these paintings over and over and over and over and over in your mind, so that when you're painting your background, you're already painting your foreground, right? So it's and then this one was a foreground to background. I won't belabor it anymore, but it's very interesting to me.
I like that.
The textures, and there's something about the lines though in this one that I want to talk to. The colors. I haven't seen this teal. This is a new color. And the purple, again, that one appeared, that darker purple. I talked about it. So it's interesting on your colors. Lots of yellow. The blue is different, right? The blue is mixed with a yellow, right, to create a teal. So that's emotions with intelligence. So it's intelligence motions. It's upward. But we got two flows going here, right? So we're going up into the spiritual or the metaphysical, but it seems to be turning in on itself and going away. So we have the one on the left comes up, the one in the middle is bending over to the left, and then the one on the right is going its own way. And then there's others there. There's the two which are going straight, and there's 5 flowers. And there's so much to say about 5.
Yeah, I do that a lot when I finish something to name it. I get ideas from things like the colors I chose, the numbers that appear. They're not usually intentional. They're just, I make the painting and then I look at it and go, okay, I'm glad you noticed that 5 flowers. And some people have asked me, like, some of your paintings, all the flowers have 6 petals, or this painting, they all have 3 petals. And so I pay attention to numbers too, and look up meanings of numbers and what that could mean for naming a painting. And I forget what 5 means. Do you know offhand what 5 has?
Well, on a it's a number. Well, I could look it up, but it's about 5 was related to mankind's first attempts at science, which were metaphysical and religious, right? So it's 5. You hear it in Christianity, 5-fold ministry. There's these kind of indications of 5, and then you'll see it in stars that are on temples and things like that. But it's what they're trying to talk about is the this process of creation, and that's what 5 was about, mankind trying to be a part of that creative process.
Interesting.
So that you had 5 in here and named it Creation Will Always Be, right? So it's good. Well, I'm gonna have a 4.5 hour show here. It all
makes sense.
I'm gonna have a 4.5 hour. Yeah, no, it's good. I guess I got into the lines and stuff, and didn't get much into the space, but I liked the. This is. I guess we're over. This is the. This is in the figurative part of your portfolio. Do you have a minute? Yeah. Because there's nothing for sale here, but because you're all sold out. But people can commission a figurative, right?
They can, yeah. I left them in here because it's this image that came to me. It's kind of a long story, but the short version is I was invited to paint for the Alberta Ballet, a fundraising event in Calgary. And I wasn't asked to paint a dancer or ballerina, but I was supposed to live paint and help raise money for the Alberta Ballet. So I got this image in my dream, a dream I had. I saw this as I was contemplating, what am I going to paint for this event? And kind of like, thinking about it and also kind of stressing and worrying about what am I going to paint for this event? I put this sort of pressure on myself when I saw this image in a dream. And so I thought, okay, and I kept painting it in my mind. And then I started painting them for about a month. I painted dancers with this flowers growing up their dress in this position. And I practiced for a good month on how to do this. And these are quite big, 4 by 3 feet pieces. And that was the plan, to go paint this painting at this event. And driving to Calgary, I started to worry and start to have like a panic attack in my car about painting this image, because I don't draw the image on the canvas first. And I was pretty new at painting these dancers and so when I go and draw that on there's no fixing it. It's like, and here we go with the shape of this image, and I hope it works out. And so when I was driving to Calgary, I was thinking about that, and I literally, James, looked up into the sky. I know this sounds so crazy, but I looked into the clouds, and I saw, so if you go on to the middle one, Dance Your Dream, if you just click that one. This one, Dance Your Dream? You can see the silhouette of her face, and then the flower in her hair with the bun in the back. I could send you this picture. It's crazy. I looked into the clouds, and her head appeared in the clouds, like with the flower in her hair. The shape of this dancer, her head was in the clouds as I'm driving. And so I grabbed my phone and I took a quick shot of it. And I said, no one's going to believe me, but I tell my friends the story and different customers who come by and ask me questions about this series I made. So I went to that event and I painted the painting, and there was a bidding war, and it was really well received. But the crazy thing it was like the sky and God was telling me, it's going to be okay. This image I gave you, and I want you to paint it, and it's going to be okay. You're going to do great. Don't worry about it. I gave you this image. Trust me, it's going to be fine. And I can't even explain like what that felt like, to see this image that came in a dream, and I physically saw it in the clouds. It was there for about a minute.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you know what, I headed up, you know what I mean, and we talked a little bit about this. I'm so glad that I took a little bit more time. And what is so awesome about the way that you paint and the way that you've described how you paint is that you paint so that people feel the hope of what you're painting, the highest hope of what they're painting, but also of that, what you're painting, right? So like we looked at mountains, we looked at landscapes, we looked at different things and how you shared that, and sailboats, and that was fascinating. And now people. Mm-hmm. And so, the ballet, and at that level of ballet, the beauty and truth of it is so powerful. It's so overwhelming for me to sit and watch. I can't even describe ballet. It's awesome. It's fantastic. Mm-hmm. But now to understand and to see this, and I know exactly how you've done the hands and the feet, and they call it I just did a ballet show with Dance Fusion, and they had the ballet teachers on. It's a conchetti head, and it's a form of ballet training, and you've captured it here, and it is so I know, and I can feel how I feel when I watch ballet. And I'm just going to go back. I apologize. I want to see the rest of the pieces, because they are significant. Now, look at the Dance Your Future, how you've captured the arms there. Dance Your Song, even that little bit extra with that leg, when they put their leg, they do that last little jump, and you've caught that there.
Yeah.
So it's so good. Is this self-portrait, the voice?
Yeah, we might have to get into that one a different time, because there's a long story behind that one. But I was commissioned by a wine restaurant, I don't know, at the beginning of my career, like long time ago. And I did a series of 3 paintings, and this painting was already sold, but it's a long story, but it came back into my life through someone in Edson. It's a long story. Anyway, when he contacted me, do you want this painting? Because it's been sitting in my office. The previous owners disappeared, and they left a bunch of stuff behind. And this long story. Well, she never had a name years before, but I was doing a show and I had the painting, and she was leaning up against other paintings, and I decided to make her the focal point of this show I was part of. And I called my whole room the artist's voice, and I called her the voice. She wasn't meant to be me, but a lot of people see me in this painting. It's huge. It's 4 by 6 feet. And as I've been like exploring my voice with music again and getting back into songwriting, she's been a reminder to me that I have a voice, that I have something to say, that it's with the art, that it's with songs I write, and reminding me of the value of who I am and what I have to say, my value as a person, as an artist, as a woman, as a singer, as a writer. So it's this constant reminder, like she's reminding me, like, don't be afraid, you have a voice and it needs to be shared. So yeah, it's there's more to it, but I'll leave it at that because it's such a cool story. So she's the only one I think for sale in that section. It looks very different than the rest, but she still is a figurative piece. So I leave those in there because I get commissions. I recently have a commission I'm working on to do another dancer piece. So I probably will do more of a series of these. I just haven't had time to build it back up, but yeah.
No, and I know, and it's different, and it takes, like you said, it takes, a different kind of deeper inspiration for you to lay it down, right? And but what you're doing is and knowing what you're painting, you're seeing the feeling of that, right? And the two dancers here, they're fantastic. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. I'm glad that
they're fun.
I'm glad that I made the mistake and stop by in error.
Yeah, go with the flow, right?
That is so good. That is so good. Shop with Giselle Denis on the Culture Channel, only on TVU. Thank you, Giselle.
Thank you, James.
All of my art is available on my website at giselledenis.com.